Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're exploring how the very foundation of human civilization might actually be a 10,000-year-old inescapable trap. You know, when we think about the agricultural revolution, we usually picture it as humanity's greatest triumph, right? It's the moment we stopped wandering, settled down, and basically built the modern world. But, as we're going to see today, we're looking at some fascinating and frankly kind of startling evidence that suggests the exact opposite. We're going to trace a straight line from the ancient skeletons of our ancestors right to the financial statements of modern farmers to uncover this unforgiving cycle we've been stuck on for millennia.
So we have to start with a highly provocative question. It was famously raised by Jared Diamond back in a 1987 essay. He looked at the anthropological record and just completely challenged the universal assumption that shifting from hunting and gathering to farming was a pure victory for humanity. I mean, we naturally assume that, right? Because we have smartphones and modern medicine today, the initial shift to agriculture must have immediately made life easier and better for early humans. But, as we're about to see, the scientific data dug right out of the ground tells a much darker story.
And honestly, this completely shatters our preconceptions. We tend to view early farming as this idyllic lifestyle, and we picture the hunter-gatherer life as just a nasty, brutish struggle for survival. But the anthropological evidence proves the exact opposite. When researchers studied modern surviving hunter-gatherers, like the Kalahari Bushmen, they found out they actually enjoyed significantly more leisure time than their farming neighbors. Get this, we're talking about a workweek of just 12 to 19 hours dedicated to getting food. 12 to 19 hours. Plus, during times of abundance, their daily intake averaged around 2,140 calories and 93 grams of protein. That is a vastly more nutritious and balanced diet than the cheap, high-carbohydrate crop diets early farmers were forced to survive on.
So the crucial takeaway here is that physical health absolutely plummeted when we adopted agriculture. When paleopathologists examined ancient skeletons from Greece and Turkey, they found that average human height literally crashed. Toward the end of the Ice Ages, hunter-gatherer men averaged a pretty generous 5 feet 9 inches, and women were about 5 foot 5. But fast forward to 3000 BC, after farming totally took over, average heights plummeted to just 5 foot 3 inches for men, and an even 5 foot for women. That is a massive 5 to 6 inch crash in human height, and it's directly tied to the malnutrition of those early agricultural diets.
But it goes way beyond just shrinking height. Farming locked humans into a really harsh new reality. Settling down and clumping together into these early cities basically created massive breeding grounds for infectious diseases and parasites. It also sparked deep social divisions. Suddenly you had elites who controlled the surplus and ate well, while the common folks just labored in poverty. We also see the emergence of severe gender inequality. Farming women were pressured to produce more hands to literally till the fields, which led to frequent pregnancies that just drained their health. Ancient Chilean mummies actually show severe bone damage from this physical strain. And finally, by relying on just a few high-carbohydrate crops, early farmers traded quality for sheer quantity. That left them constantly exposed to the risk of mass starvation if even a single crop failed.
Part 1. Fast forward to the agricultural treadmill. Let's see how this ancient biological trap evolved into a modern economic one.
We've seen how agriculture was an ancient biological necessity that trapped early humans into a life of harder labor and poorer health. Well, let's fast forward 10,000 years to see how this built into a massive economic phenomenon. This brings us to a really foundational concept outlined by agricultural economist Willard Cochrane back in his 1958 book, Farm Prices, Myth and Reality. He called it the agricultural treadmill. Cochrane realized that farmers today are trapped on an economic treadmill that is just as grueling as that ancient shift to agriculture. Think about anyone who's ever stared at a gym mirror running in place in mid-January. Modern farmers are forced to continuously sprint just to stay in the exact same spot. Here are the mechanics of this trap broken down into 4 steps. First, progressive farmers, the early adopters, buy some shiny new technology, like a better seed variety or a huge labor-saving machine. For a brief, fleeting moment, they lower their costs and increase their profits. Awesome, right? Well, then step 2 kicks in. The technology spreads. Every other farmer adopts it, which significantly increases the total market supply of that crop. Step 3 is just basic economics. Because there's no excess supply, market prices inevitably fall. Which leads us right to step 4. The late-adopting laggard farmers are now absolutely forced to buy that expensive new technology. Not to get ahead, mind you, but just to survive the new lower market prices. And then, the cycle immediately starts all over again.
The grim reality is that if a farmer refuses to jump on this unforgiving treadmill, their profits don't just stagnate, they drop to zero. They go completely out of business. This unrelenting pressure perfectly explains why the total number of farms in the US continues to decline year after year. The farmers who just can't keep up the sprint literally fall right off the back of the treadmill.
Part 2. A way out? Let's take a look at organic farming. So to escape this brutal cost-price squeeze, farmers desperately try to jump off the treadmill. They start looking for what business strategists call blue oceans, these new, uncontested markets that offer higher premium prices. And a major way they've tried to differentiate is by shifting into agrotourism, or organic farming. But empirical research from Henning Odd Hansen analyzing Danish agriculture tells a totally different story. When you look at the data, conventional dairy and organic dairy track almost identically over time. They both slope upward at a remarkably similar rate. This proves that organic dairy is experiencing the exact same continuous productivity pressure and treadmill mechanics as conventional farming. There's no escaping it.
And it's the exact same story when we look at farm size and hectares. We see identical structural consolidation. Organic farms are following a parallel, steep upward trajectory. They're being forced to expand and swallow up smaller farms at a mirroring rate to conventional ones, all just to survive the economies of scale required for the industry.
So, why does this happen? Why is it inescapable? Well, it's because agriculture fundamentally relies on raw materials with very low barriers to entry. Think about it. If organic farming suddenly becomes highly profitable, other farmers are going to quickly endure the conversion process to get a piece of that premium price. That inevitably increases the supply of organic goods, which forces the organic sale prices right back down. Ultimately, an organic potato is still a raw agricultural commodity. It's incredibly difficult to add enough unique value to it to permanently escape the gravitational pull of market competition.
This brings us right back to Cochrane's defining thought. The global agricultural system, whether ancient or modern, conventional or organic, is essentially a machine perfectly designed to benefit the end consumer. As consumers, we get to enjoy ever cheaper, more abundant food. It's great for us, but the producers themselves, they remain locked in a perpetual, exhausting struggle for survival. They are forced to run faster and faster every single year just to break even.
As we wrap up this explainer, we're left to ponder a rather heavy reality. If both ancient skeletal remains bearing the scars of early farming and modern financial statements bearing the strain of endless technological upgrades show the exact same unforgiving pressure, is there any real way to ever step off the agricultural treadmill? The next time you sit down for a meal, consider the 10,000 years of unbroken, exhausting human momentum it took to get that food to your plate. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the systems that build our world.